Welcome. You may want 2 blocks and a blanket for practice. They are not required for this practice whatsoever, but sometimes having a little extra cushion for some poses or blocks to put your hands on for other poses so that you don't have to reach can be incredibly helpful and supportive. We'll start practice lying on your back with your feet stepped onto the floor and your knees bent. You can choose to have your knees parallel or knocked into one another in constructive rest. You can either close your eyes or have them very gently gazing upwards towards the ceiling so that as you gaze, your eyes resist the temptation to seek the ceiling or seek information from the space above you, and rather they broaden so that you actually see wider, you see a little bit softer, and you see with a little less intensity. This practice is focusing a little bit on the warrior aspect of the yoga practice or the yoga posture. We often think of warriors as active souls or having purpose of moving into spaces that are challenging with bravery and a single-pointed goal. That sometimes we forget that the act of bravery in a warrior can also be an act of staying still, an act of not moving forward into space, an act of staying right within the environment and the context that you find yourself in. There is an act of warriorship and bravery that comes with feeling everything that's arising, whether it's considered good or challenging or bad or painful, so that you have the information of your particular experience with the present moment as it arrives each and every second after another. See if you can commit yourself to finding the seat of a warrior in which you approach stillness with a sense of curiosity and bravery. Notice when you want to fidget or adjust something. Notice if there's a lot of anxiety or discomfort. Notice if there's a sense of accomplishment or joy in movement. And so as we move, the idea of the asana practice is to experience. Whether or not you move through the deepest poses or do the most pretzel-like things is not the goal. The goal is really to experience the body and the mind as it is right now and be okay with that. And so as you find yourself lying down on your back, particularly if you're someone who spends a lot of time sitting, right? Sitting or standing, which most of us do. Most of us don't spend an enormous amount of time lying flat on our back or having our knees bent on our back. We don't work that way. And so as you lie here and you feel the structure of your floor, whether it's wood or carpet, whatever the texture of what you're lying on presents itself, see if you can just have a sense of how your body meets the texture of the surface that you're lying on. And can there be a real sensitivity to the places where your body meets that surface a little bit more heavily? Right? The areas of the body that might not quite touch the ground, right? In particular here, your knees are not on the ground, right? But what's the sense of how the pelvis and the feet meet the ground? And is this way in which you've placed your body a choice, right? Did you make specific alignment choices as you laid your body down? Or did you find yourself on the ground and then start to be aware of, oh, my left hip might be a little bit heavier, my right foot might be a little bit heavier. What are the habitual asymmetries that you find in yourself? Do you notice that your low back is flattened and your tail is almost curling up and off the floor as if it was reaching toward the back of your knees? Alternatively, do you feel like there is a lot of space underneath your low back, almost like you could slide a full arm underneath and it would be as if nothing was there, right? Are you so arched that there's almost a disconnect between your spine and the floor? And there is a lot of room here for just simply getting to know oneself, feeling how you move through this world with consciousness, but also a lot of unconscious efficiency, right? We develop habits because they require less energy. They've served us to a certain degree at some point in our life, and our body said, okay, I'm going to keep that one. And sometimes those are great. Sometimes there are habits that no longer serve the efficiency or the needs of the body, and so that's when we get to make changes. Before we can make changes, however, we have to know what the habit is. That can take directions and awareness just to say, oh, I didn't know that I placed my pelvis in that way. It might also take weeks or months or years to say, I always approach this particular posture with a sense of competitiveness and I push it a little bit too far. Right? Or, I'm always a little bit timid about that particular posture because I experienced that part of my body in one way at some time, and I'm just a little bit hesitant. And so part of the practice of being a warrior in yoga is being willing to have the asana practice or the posture-based practice reflect back to us our choices, right? In yoga, they're often called samskaras or grooves, deep grooves in our nervous system, our neuromuscular system that is how our brain learned things over and over and over. And so the neurons fired together, they wired together, and so they're super fast, which is an amazing part of the human body. But that amazing part of the human body often then kind of dissolves into the back of consciousness. And so as we practice, we might start to see ourselves revealed to ourselves. We might be surprised, or we might actually know that those things are there and might choose to ignore them sometimes, which is okay. But the practice is allowing ourselves to make choices for what we need now. And so as you lie here, as you feel your body against the texture of the floor, your mat, the carpet, the ground, whatever it is, start to bring your attention to your breath. And as you bring your attention to your breath, notice, what does it feel like to breathe in and out? Do you automatically breathe in and out through your nostrils or through your mouth? If you've practiced yoga in particular styles, it's possible that you relate the mat to a specific type of breathing called ujjayi breathing, which entails constricting the throat. And so again, notice, what is your habit? And for the next few breaths, see if you can direct the breath in and out through the nose with a soft throat, so the breath should be silent, and see how that feels. If that is your habit, notice that that choice feels really kind of natural and boring and mundane. Sometimes those moments where we get bored, where there's almost less challenge or less sensation, those are the really interesting moments, because our brain tends to then go off and wander. It's much harder to keep attention when we don't have a task that requires more attention, like changing a habit. And so breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth, soft throat, so that there is minimal resistance to the air that's coming in through the nose and going into the lungs, and minimal resistance of the air coming out of the lungs and out through the nose. Feel what you feel. Stay as still as is humanly possible as you breathe. And consider this the entry point of the warrior practice. You are still amongst an environment that may be very chaotic or very full, and you are choosing to lie on the floor and breathe. Very counterculture, incredibly brave. And then as you continue breathing, take your attention back to your low spine, right? That space where your low back almost becomes your pelvis, right? Your lumbar. And on an exhale, go ahead and press your low back down into the floor so that your tail does kind of point upwards towards the backs of your thighs. This is cat spine, rounding the back down into the floor. And then the next time you inhale, do the reverse. Let your pelvis tilt away from your rib cage so that your tailbone aims down, your pubic bone goes almost through the inner thighs towards the floor, and the lower back arches off the ground. And then as an exhale comes back in, reverse that, go to cat spine. And as you inhale, come to cow. And depending on how long or short your breath is, you're welcome to match one inhale to your cow spine, one exhale to your cat. If you want to spend a little bit more time, you can do a full inhale, exhale in one posture and then move on to the next. We're trying to warm up the spine and the pelvis just by sort of moving and modulating the breath as you move through cat and cow. So you could inhale to cow spine, exhale to cat spine, over and over again. In some movement methodologies, this could be called pelvic clocking, right? Trying to figure out where is your pelvis in space and how does that affect your back. And then the next time you exhale, come to a neutral spine, so somewhere between cat and cow, about halfway. And then let your legs fall over towards the left, stack your shins, and bring your knees up so they're about at the level of your belly button, coming into a twist. Extend the arms out to the sides. And you can either have the head turned up towards the ceiling, or you can rotate your head in the opposite direction of your knees. If you'd like to have a little bit of weight on top of your top thigh, feel free to place a hand there and give a little bit of pressure down. And then see if you can relax both sides of your upper back down into the floor. Notice, where do you feel this twisting happening? And then as you inhale, come back up through center and simply switch sides. So knees fall down. You draw the knees up to about the level of the belly button. The shins are stacked. The arms are reaching out to the side. Maybe you turn the head in opposition to the knees. Maybe you place a hand on top of the top thigh for a little extra grounding. And then come back to center. Make sure you are about halfway between cat and cow. Bring the hands to the lower belly so that the pinky fingers are on your hip bones and the hands are below the navel on your lower abdomen. And then feel a gentle hugging in toward the midline of your lower belly to start to engage the transverse abdominis. You should feel a gentle tightening down and in of that lower abdomen. If you feel a pressing out, you've gone too far. So you want a very gentle, almost hugging in as if the hip bones could hug in a little bit closer toward your midline of your body. And then bring your right leg up into tabletop. So the knee's gonna float right above the hip. The shin will be parallel to the floor. And then join your left leg up. And just kind of notice what happens. Does your lower back really want to come off and away from the floor? Are you able to maintain it? Or do you press the lower back down because that's what you were taught to do in a class or in a methodology somewhere else? And so we're looking for a neutral spine, shins parallel to the floor, knees over hips. And if that feels like a lot for your lower back, go ahead and bring the knees a little closer to your chest to reduce the load on your lower back and see if you can breathe here. You might feel a little bit of tension in your throat. That's fine. Right, we want to protect the lower back by maintaining that hugging in of the lower abdomen. And then bring both hands onto the right knee and extend your left leg down straight onto the floor with the foot flexed. So the toes are pulling back toward you, the heel is reaching away from you, and your right knee is hugging into your chest, guided by your hands. And then for a moment, take your awareness to your left leg and let your left leg turn out. So the toes turn out to the side, and do that actively. And then draw the toes back up. And then try to turn the toes in. You might find that that's a little bit less accessible for many reasons, some muscular, some skeletal. There are lots of reasons why internal rotation here is harder than external rotation. But kind of go back and forth between external and internal rotation and just see what that feels like. And if you have a really clear awareness in your brain as to where your foot is pointing in space. You might even close your eyes and turn your leg out and then check your work by lifting your head up and looking at your foot. Right? And then you do the same thing with your internal rotation. And then go ahead and bring the toes straight up towards the ceiling. This is always a really fun moment to see if you know where straight up is without looking initially. And then go ahead and curl your head up, see if you were correct or if you were off a little bit one way or another. Feel the lower abdominals engage, and then pull your left leg back up so that you have your right hand on your right knee, your left hand on your left knee. Lower your head back down. Bring your hands both onto the left leg and extend your right leg down with a flexed foot, toes pointing up towards the ceiling. And then play around with rotating the leg out to the side and rotating the leg in. And on this side, right, you can still play that game of, do I know where my foot is in space? If you feel pretty confident in that, you can take this a step further to say, where am I rotating from? Right? Do I feel that rotation coming just from my ankle? Right? Maybe my knee, maybe my hip. Be wary if you feel this rotation coming from anything above your hip. So if you feel like your lower back is getting involved, you might be going too far, right? Your lower back might be really on board to compensate a little bit, which is lovely of that lower back to be so helpful, but we really want to maintain this rotation in the leg itself and not in the back. And then find the foot pointing straight up towards the ceiling. Check your work by lifting your head up and seeing if you were correct in where your toes are pointing. Keep the head curled up. Pull your bottom leg back in so you've got one hand on each leg. And then go ahead, roll over to the side. Find your way onto hands and knees. Bring the big toes together. Widen the knees as wide as your sticky mat. And then sit back into child's pose. The arms are extended forward. You want your knees wide enough so that your torso feels like it can drop down in between the inner thighs, right? If you have lower back stuff going on and you want a little bit more support from your legs, you can bring the legs in a little bit closer. And then extend through the arms actively. So the hands are reaching out and pressing down into the floor a bit. And then walk your hands over to the left, taking a side bend. And so as the hands go over to the left and you are reaching out through that right arm, opening the ribs on the right side, see if you can imagine someone coming up behind you and really gently pressing down on the right half of your pelvis to help ground it. Right? You might even be able to engage that right hip closer to the floor or your heel actively. And as you engage that right hip down, notice if that changes the sensation for you, right? Does it pull more of the stretch into your waist, or does it give you somewhere to reach from, right? So we reach from the grounding of the right hip so that we have that opposition from which to find length. And then come back through center and go over to the right side. So now you're reaching out through the left arm. You're trying to ground the left hip down and back so that you start to open the left side body. Now, there may be differences between the right and left side. That would be incredibly common, right? Most of us hold a bag on one side or a kid on one side or a dog on one side. You also have variations in organs. You got a liver on your right, a stomach on your left. And so bending might feel different depending on not only muscular habit, but also organs, which is a topic for another day, but an interesting one. And so come back to center, shift forward onto hands and knees, and make your way into downward facing dog, knees bent, feet hip distance apart. And as you arrive in downward facing dog, be still. It's really common in yoga in particular to take that first down dog, to wiggle it out and pedal the feet and kind of fidget. See what it feels like to arrive in downward facing dog after the kind of warm up asanas or postures, and to be still and to be observant. And then the next time you inhale, come to hands and knees. Step your right foot forward and bring both hands up onto the right knee. So you're in a kneeling position. This is where a blanket underneath the left knee could be really lovely, particularly if you have knees that are sensitive or irritable, or you just like a little extra cushion. And then bring your right hand on the outside of your right knee and give a little bit of pressure in between those two parts of your body. So the right hand presses in, the right knee presses out, and hopefully you're feeling a little bit of engagement on the outer right hip muscles. And those are your abductors. And those muscles are going to be really important in keeping your knee aligned as you move through some standing postures. And so keep giving that pressure. You can increase it or decrease it depending on how much engagement or sensation you would like to feel. And then go ahead and lift your left arm straight up towards the ceiling. Keep the pressure between the right hand and the right knee. Tuck your back toes. And then try lifting the back knee just a couple inches off the mat, right? So you're in a hovering kneeling position while still pressing your right hand to your right knee and vice versa. Take a few breaths. Notice what you feel. Notice if you already hate this or you're like, hey, this is challenging, this is great. Let that be your truth. And then slowly lower your back knee down towards the ground. Raise both arms up towards the ceiling. Keep the back toes tucked. And then again, lift your left knee off the ground, coming into a hovering kneel. And you can even straighten that back leg if you want to come into almost a short variation of a high lunge. That would be fine. It's a little bit easier because you don't have quite so much load on that front leg. It's also a little bit more of a back bend, which could be really nice to open the front of the hip. And so taking a couple breaths, see if you can feel how your hip and your knee are relating to one another. Is your hip higher than your knee? Is your knee wanting to kind of drift towards the left a little bit? Or can you still feel an imaginary hand helping guide your right knee straight forward? Take one more breath. And then as you exhale, bring both hands down towards the floor and step back to downward facing dog. Knees bent again, both hands planted. And then take a couple of breaths and just kind of see if you feel any differences right to left. As you inhale, lower your knees down. Step your left foot forward into that kneeling position. Bring your left hand onto the outer left knee. Right hand can lift up. And then give some pressure between your left hand and your left knee. Find that sensation and engagement on the outer left hip. Right? And this outer left hip muscle area is super important to help keep your pelvis stable, to help keep you stable when walking or running. And so we want to get a sense of, do they feel equal in strength right to left? Is there one that kind of clicks in a little bit better? It can coordinate or engage a little bit more on cue, right? For me, I know that my left side is not quite as happy to participate as my right side is. And so that's my body. You may have a different experience in your body. And then keep that pressure between the left hand and the left knee. Tuck the right toes under and start to hover the right knee off the ground 1 to 2 inches. And so in this first one, you are trying to be in that sort of hovering kneeling position, which is super challenging on both thighs. And then on an exhale, gently lower your back knee down. Take a couple breaths. Reach both arms up towards the ceiling. Keep the awareness of your left knee aligned and pointing straight forward so it doesn't buckle inwards. And then back toes are tucked. Go ahead, lift up either into that kind of hovering kneel again or into a high lunge, straightening the back leg. And again, it will be probably a shorter high lunge than what you may be used to. Finding what this side feels like. Does it feel tired? Does it feel ready to go? What is your relationship with lunges, right? You may have a history with them that is presenting itself. And then on an exhale, bring hands down, step back, downward facing dog. If you would like to pedal your feet out now, feel free to do so. And you can choose to do it kind of quick, almost like a muscle pumping, energy building run, or you can go do it super slow, which is more of a prolonged stretch of the calf and the fascia in the back of the leg. Either way. And then in your own time, start to walk your feet forward to the top of your mat. This is where blocks could be useful to have underneath your hands if you have those. You're always welcome to bend your knees so that fingertips at least can be on the floor. Having feet hip distance apart, so about 2 fists width apart, can be good for increasing balance, right? It's a little bit more stable. It can also help with bending forward to get the fingertips down a little bit easier than having the legs all the way together. There's just more space for the torso. If you would like to have the feet all the way together, by all means, do so. And just kind of know that that might provide a little bit more of a balance challenge because your base of support is much more narrow. Next time you inhale, come into a flat back. Bring your hands onto your shins or maybe even up onto the upper thighs. And then exhale, fold all the way back down. Next time you inhale, come into a flat back again. See if your chest can reach farther forward away from your hips. And then exhale, fold down. This time, as you inhale, reach the arms out to the side and then up to the ceiling as you come to upward hand pose, Urdhva Hastasana. So you're standing upright, your feet are pressing down into the floor, your hands are reaching overhead. And then as you exhale, bring the arms out to the side and down to your hips, mountain pose. As you inhale, sweep the arms out and up, upward hand pose, Urdhva Hastasana. As you exhale, dive forward, arms go out to the side, then all the way down to the floor, standing forward, bend. Bend the knees as necessary. Inhale, flat back, chest reaches forward. Exhale, fold back down. Inhale, reach the arms out and up to the ceiling. Exhale, mountain pose. Inhale, lift the arms, upward hand pose. Exhale, dive forward, arms go out to the side and all the way to the floor, bending the knees. Inhale, flat back, chest moves forward as the hands come to the shins or the thighs. Exhale, fold back down. Inhale, reach the arms out and up to the ceiling, upward hand pose. Exhale, mountain pose. Adding on, inhale, lift the arms, upward hand pose. Exhale, fold forward, hands to the floor or blocks if you have them. As you inhale, come into your flat back. And then as you exhale, step your right foot back into a low lunge. Plant your hands as you inhale. Exhale, step your left foot back, downward facing dog. Inhale, come forward to plank position, shoulders over wrists. Exhale, lower your knees down to the floor. Inhale, look forward, and then exhale, lower your chest and your belly to the floor. Inhale, come into a baby cobra, curling the upper chest off the ground, and then exhale, lower your head all the way back down. Inhale to prepare, feel the hands pressing into the floor. Exhale, press up onto hands and knees, tuck the toes, and lift all the way back, downward facing dog. As you inhale, lift the right leg up, down dog split. So you're in a three-legged dog. And let's pause here for a couple of breaths. Feel the hands as much as you can equally grounding down into the floor or to the mat. And see if you can feel in your mind's eye that your right leg is neutral. It's not turning in or out. Your left knee can always be bent here, especially if your hamstrings are a little bit talkative and they need to settle down a little bit. As you reach that right leg up and back a little bit further, take a full inhale. And then as you exhale, pull your right foot forward in between your hands. If it doesn't get there, grab your right hand with your right ankle, with your right hand and step it forward. And then inhale, look forward. You're in your low lunge. Exhale, step your left foot forward, standing forward, bend. Inhale, flat back, chest moves away from the thighs. Exhale, fold all the way back down. Inhale, sweep the arms out and up to the ceiling, upward hand pose. Exhale, mountain pose. Inhale, lift the arms. Maybe you look up. Exhale, dive forward, standing forward, bend. Inhale, lengthen the chest forward, flat back. Exhale, step the left foot back into your low lunge. Inhale, plant the hands onto the ground. Exhale, step back, downward facing dog. Inhale, come forward to plank. Exhale, lower the knees. Inhale, look forward. And then exhale, bend the elbows, lowering your chest and your belly all the way down. Inhale, baby cobra. Feel your chest move forward, then up. Exhale, lower your head back down. Press through the hands as you inhale to prepare. And then exhale, move back to down dog through hands and knees. Inhale, lift your left leg up, down dog split. Pausing here for a couple of breaths, making sure that your left leg is neutral. So it's not turning in, it's not turning out, and that you have equal weight in between the two hands. And then one more inhale. Exhale, pull the left foot in between the hands. Again, if it doesn't quite get there, step it as far forward as you can get it. Then grab the ankle with the left hand and step it all the way forward. Inhale, look forward in your low lunge. Exhale, step your right foot forward into a standing forward bend. Inhale, flat back, moving the chest away from the thighs. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, reach the arms out and up to the ceiling. Exhale, mountain pose. Inhale, lift the arms. Exhale, dive forward. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, step your right foot back. Take a full breath in. Exhale, move back, downward facing dog. Inhale, come forward to plank. Exhale, lower all the way down to the belly. You can always come to hands and knees and then lower. Inhale, cobra. You can do baby cobra again or larger cobra. Exhale, lower all the way back down. Inhale, tuck the toes, feel the low belly engage. Exhale, downward facing dog, either through plank or through hands and knees. Inhale, lift the right leg up, down dog split. Exhale, step the right foot forward into your low lunge. Inhale, brighten the chest forward. Exhale, step the left foot forward, standing forward bend. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, fold. Inhale, the arms sweep out and up, Urdhva Hastasana. Exhale, mountain pose, Tadasana. Inhale, lift the arms. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, step the left foot back, low lunge. Full breath in. Exhale, step back, downward facing dog. Inhale, come forward to plank. Exhale, make your way to the floor, either through plank or hands and knees. Inhale, cobra, small, medium, or large. Exhale, lower all the way back down. Inhale, tuck the toes, prepare. Exhale, downward facing dog through hands and knees or plank. Inhale, lift the left leg up, down dog split. Exhale, step the left foot forward, low lunge. Inhale, open the chest a little bit, feel it brighten. Exhale, step the right foot forward, standing forward bend, Uttanasana. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, fold. Inhale, reach the arms out and up to the ceiling, Urdhva Hastasana. Exhale, mountain pose. Inhale, lift the arms. This time, exhale, grab the right hand with the left wrist, and then start to side bend over to the left. And so as you clasp the wrist, you're pulling it overhead and you're going kind of up and over, but you are trying to open the waist. And so you may feel like as you bend over that you're sort of closing one side and opening the other, and that's fine. Take another breath in. As you exhale, come back to center, switch the clasp of your hands, and then bend over to the other direction. Take a couple of breaths, knowing that you're kind of opening one side as you're closing the other, right? That's just laws of movement. One thing has to close so that the other thing opens. But you also want to maintain a little bit of length. And then as you inhale, come back up, separate the arms about shoulder distance and sit into chair pose, Utkatasana. So in chair pose, the knees bend forward, the hips sit back so that you are still placing your weight over the center of your feet. It almost looks like a zigzag as you go from fingertip down to hip, forward to the knee, down and back to the heel, and then forward to the toes. And one more inhale. Exhale, arms go out to the side and all the way to the floor, standing forward bend. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, step your right foot back to a low lunge. And then come up into a high lunge so that both arms reach up around the ears towards the ceiling. Take a few breaths here. Make sure that your left knee is pointing straight forward. And then see if you can feel really strong engagement of your right leg. So your right kneecap is pulling up into the flesh of your quad, and you have a lot of length and kind of vibrancy to that back leg. Take one more inhale, and then exhale, bring the hands down to the floor, step back, downward facing dog. Inhale, come forward to plank or stand down dog. Exhale, lower to the floor. You can also do chaturanga if that's in your practice. Inhale, cobra or upward facing dog. Exhale, back, downward facing dog. We're going to hold down dog for a few breaths. And so choose, do you want your knees bent, which makes the lengthening of the spine a little bit more available for almost all of us? Or do you want to start to work with the legs straight, which requires the hamstrings to lengthen a little bit more assertively? If you ever find yourself in a position where the stretch is so loud that it takes your breath away, that's a really good indication that you're sort of on the edge, right? And if you can stay there and then bring the breath back and it feels safe and healthy and like a good challenge, then by all means, practice in that way. But if you feel like you're pushing yourself to the point where you can't find your breath, try backing off a little bit and seeing if you experience yourself in a slightly different way, a little bit more middle path, a little bit more compassionate. Next time you inhale, lift the right leg up, down dog split. And at this time in down dog split, play around. Externally rotate that top thigh, internally rotate that top thigh, and notice how when you externally rotate that top thigh, your hip wants to move, right? Most of us have been taught to rotate our pelvis in order to rotate the leg rather than just rotating the leg. And so play, see what you like. See if you can isolate the leg and the hip and that you know that you can do that. If you really want to open that top hip and kind of stack it on top of the left leg, cool, do that. But just start to get an awareness of how much control do you have upside down, over a lifted leg with not being able to see what's going on. 3 things that are not super easy. Next time you exhale, pull your right foot forward in between your hands, low lunge. Take a full breath in as you come up onto fingertips and lengthen the chest. And then exhale, step your back foot forward, standing forward bend. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, fold. Inhale, reach the arms all the way up to the ceiling, Urdhva Hastasana, upward hand pose. Exhale, mountain pose. Second side. Inhale, lift the arms. Grab the left wrist with the right hand. Take a side bend over to the right. As you inhale, come back to center. Switch the grasp. Side bend over to the left. Inhale, come back up to center. Separate the arm shoulder distance. Exhale, chair pose, Utkatasana, sitting the hips down and back. Full breath in. Exhale, fold forward, hands to the floor. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, step your left leg back, low lunge. And then reach your arms up to the ceiling, high lunge. Power into the back leg so that you feel the kneecap being pulled up the thigh. That's the engagement of your quadricep, right? It moves the kneecap up in order to have a glide to help straighten the knee. That's really important, particularly if you're someone who likes to lock into the back of your knee, which tends to disengage that quad a little bit. You really want to feel the active energy of that quad muscle participating in this lunge. And then next time you exhale, hands to the floor, downward facing dog. Moving through the vinyasa or not, you can stand down dog or inhale forward to plank. Exhale, lower to the belly or to chaturanga. Inhale, cobra or upward facing dog. Exhale, back, downward facing dog. Holding here, breathing. Maybe noticing if the heart rate has sped up a little bit and seeing if it stays at that sped up place or if it starts to slow down, right? That's your heart's response to stress or movement or activity. And then to breath and quiet and potentially kind of asked for relaxation. And then next time you inhale, lift your left leg up, down dog split. And play around with internally and externally rotating the leg. Again, notice if the hip really wants to get involved or if you can isolate the leg bone in the hip socket, the femur in the pelvis. Technically, those are two things that are joined by a joint. Sometimes our body starts to feel like that's one thing, not joined by a joint. We want those two things to be interdependent, not codependent, which I say a lot, but I also find that a lot of people gain a lot of freedom in movement when they learn how to move their leg in their pelvis as opposed to moving their leg pelvis on their lower back. And then come back to neutral. Take a full inhale. Exhale, step the left foot forward in between your hands, low lunge. Inhale, come up onto fingertips, lengthen the chest. Exhale, step the right foot forward, standing forward bend. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, fold. Inhale, lift the arms up and overhead, Urdhva Hastasana. Exhale, mountain pose, Tadasana. Inhale, lift the arms. Exhale, chair pose, Utkatasana. Now, move your weight onto the left leg. Make sure that that left knee points straight forward. And then carefully and with gentleness, but clarity, step your right foot back into a high lunge. Keep your left knee pointing straight forward as you come into Warrior Two. So your right foot turns down to the floor. Your torso and your pelvis kind of shift towards the right, but your left knee stays straight forward. Right? Notice if, as you do that transition, that feels a little bit challenging to isolate the left knee as the rest of the body opens to the right. And then make adjustments as you need to do so. You can realign the left knee over sort of the second toe. You can check your back foot to make sure that it's slightly internally rotated. Your pelvis will probably not be facing directly to the right unless you have incredibly open hips that can do a middle split, so to speak. Most of us need to angle our pelvis just a little bit on the diagonal towards the front of the mat. But then your chest does square to the right. You've got some interesting counter spirals that you have to work with to be in a really clean Warrior Two position. Arms are parallel to the floor. Eyes gaze forward over your left hand. And then as you inhale, go ahead and straighten the front leg. Keep the arms parallel to the floor. Exhale, bend. See if you can kind of inch your way toward the thigh being parallel to the ground. Inhale, straighten. Exhale, bend. Inhale, straighten. Exhale, bend. Inhale, straighten. Now take the right hand down the back leg, left arm reaches up to the ceiling and maybe overhead, reverse triangle pose. And exhale, windmill the hands down around your front foot, come into a low lunge. Lift your left arm up towards the ceiling, twisting toward your front leg. Right hand is on the ground. Couple of breaths here. And then next time you exhale, bring your left hand down, start to straighten your front leg as much as it's able, right? Doesn't have to be totally straight, but the back leg does. The back leg needs to be fully lengthened. Front leg is moving toward being lengthened, Parsvottanasana. As you inhale, low lunge, bend your front knee. As you exhale, step the back foot forward to meet the front foot. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, fold. Inhale, Utkatasana, chair pose. Arms reach up alongside the ears. Shift your weight into your right foot. Step your left foot back with real clarity of movement. Feel your back thigh engage. And then come into Warrior Two, making sure that the right knee stays pointing straight forward. It doesn't kind of come along to the left with you. The left foot grounds, slightly internally rotated. The pelvis is probably not straight to the side, a little bit angled upwards towards the top of your mat, but not so much as it's trying to square to the front. This is an individual alignment choice, and the goal is to protect the front knee so that it doesn't get twisted. And so you can play around with how far can I move my pelvis to being quote unquote squared towards the left side of your mat without feeling like you have to compensate with your lower back or your knee. Arms parallel to the floor, eyes pointing straight forward. And then as you inhale, straighten the front leg. Exhale, bend the front knee toward that 90 degree where the thigh is parallel to the floor. Inhale, straighten the front leg. Exhale, bend. Inhale, straighten. Exhale, bend. Inhale, straighten. And then left hand goes down the back leg, right arm reaches up and over, coming into reverse triangle pose. As you exhale, circle the hands down around the front foot, low lunge. Plant the left hand, lift the right arm up towards the ceiling, take a twist. And then as you exhale, right hand comes down, start to straighten through the front leg as much as it's able. Parshvottanasana. As you inhale, bend the front knee, low lunge. Exhale, step the back foot forward to meet the front foot. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, fold. Inhale, arms reach out and up to the ceiling. Exhale, mountain pose. As you inhale, bring the hands to prayer, Anjali Mudra. So the palms are pressed in front of the chest. Thumbs are resting near or on the breastbone. Shift your weight into your left foot and lift your right leg up into a single leg stance. So about parallel to the floor. Now, as you balance here, make sure that you have a significant amount of your attention in your standing leg. Is your left knee buckling? Is it slamming back into the joint? Can you feel the left thigh muscle engage upwards towards the pelvis? Do you feel like your pelvis is tucking under in order to hoist the right leg up and forward? Or do you feel like you are kind of sitting in your lower back and compressing it, so you're too much in a cow spine? And so play around with pressing down through the left heel to lift the left kneecap up. And then seeing if you can shift your weight just a little bit back so that we're untucking the pelvis. And then keeping all of that, keep the hands where they're at, keep your left leg where it's at. Just open your right leg out towards the side, keeping the knee about 90 degrees. Right, so we're not coming into tree pose quite yet. You're just saying, how open can I get that right leg? And you might look at it and notice it's probably not a full 90 degrees open towards the right. And so that's great information for how we should be practicing Warrior Two, right? And then go ahead, either grab the foot, pull it up into the left inner thigh for tree pose, or place it on the calf in tree pose, or kickstand the foot so the toes are on the ground and the heel is against the left ankle, also tree pose. Hands can come back into Anjali Mudra just to keep it simple. And breathe. It is super common to wobble in tree pose. Bonus points if you fall out of tree pose and get back in and know where you fell so that you can start to self-correct where your tendencies for balance are. You're welcome to stay here. If you would like to challenge your balance, go ahead and reach your arms straight up towards the ceiling. Bring your right hand down onto the top of your right thigh, and then start to side bend to the right. So you're sliding your hand down towards your knee, and your left arm is arcing up and over. And again, notice where your weight needs to go in order to attempt to stay up. And if you fall, great, come back in and play around with how to maneuver to try to bend over and maybe fall in the opposite direction. Save some juice to come back to center. Bring the hands to Anjali Mudra. Point the right knee forward and step back into high lunge. Inhale, open to Warrior Two. Exhale, downward facing dog. Circle the hands down, step back. As you inhale, lift the left leg up, down dog split. Exhale, step the left foot forward in between your hands. Inhale, come back to high lunge. Yes, this is the same side. Exhale, open warrior two. So now that your thighs are likely a little bit fatigued, we're going to hold warrior two for about 2 minutes. You have a couple options here. The back leg must remain straight. It's non-negotiable. The front leg can determine how intense this is on the front thigh. A deeper bend, not past 90 degrees at the knee, like that's our stopping point. So towards 90 degrees, more challenging or more effortful, right? Because of the angle of the knee. Higher, right? You can always shorten your warrior two and be a little bit more upright. Might be a little bit easier for you. Now, of course, if your body starts saying, this is not healthy for me, I need to take a break and straighten my knee, you listen to your body and do a practice that is non-harmful. If it's hard, this is tiring, I don't know what's happening right now, those are fun places to sit in and be curious about what's going on. And so I would offer that this is a really safe time to play with some of those things if your brain isn't getting danger signals. See if you can bring attention to your breath. See if you can bring attention to areas that are tired and give them a little bit more support just by bringing them some attention, bringing them that connection between, I see that you're tired, I am here for you. And then next time you exhale, go ahead, straighten the front leg. Turn the feet so that they're parallel, facing the long edge of your mat. And then let the hands come down to the floor and take a straddled forward fold, Prasarda Padottanasana. Bent knees here are lovely to help the pelvis roll forward over the thighs. Hands can be forward, downward dog-esque, if that feels like a nice back lengthening position for you. They can also start to crawl in between the feet or past the feet in between the legs, bringing the crown of the head to or toward the floor. Next time you inhale, walk your hands around to the front of your mat, low lunge. Exhale, step the back foot forward, standing forward bend. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, fold. Inhale, reach the arms out and up to the ceiling, Urdhva Hastasana. Exhale, mountain pose, bringing the hands to prayer, Anjali Mudra in front of the chest. Shift your weight onto your right leg and start to lift your left leg up into a single leg stance. And again, check in with your standing leg. This time it's your right side. Notice if your knee is engaged or kind of lax or pressing back into the joint especially if you're hyperextended, that can be less helpful in terms of stability. So we want engagement of the thigh up as the heel presses down. We want to untuck the pelvis if it's tucked under. And then once you have all of that, start to pull the left thigh out to the side a little bit, almost as if you were pointing the knee more and more to the left, seeing what the range is. And then come into your choice of tree. So left foot onto the upper right thigh, onto the calf, or kickstanded with the toes on the floor and the heel on the inner right ankle bone. Avoid placing the foot on the inner knee. It's just, we don't really want to put that kind of stress directly on the knee joint. It's better to have it above or below. Finding your balance. And then either stay here or reach the arms up towards the ceiling. Bring the left hand down to the top of the left thigh and start to side bend over to the left, playing around with where you manage your balance in order to either not fall or to fall in the opposite direction of the direction you fell already. Right? There's nothing quite like falling safely that can really teach the body where it is in space. And so it's highly recommended to fall with mindfulness so that you kind of learn your body's way of reacting to gravity. And then come all the way back up, point the left knee forward, and step back into high lunge. As you exhale, warrior two. Inhale. Exhale, circle the arms down to the floor, downward facing dog. Lift the right leg up, down dog split. Step the right foot forward, low lunge. Inhale, high lunge. Exhale, warrior two. And so here we are at 2-minute warrior two practice once more. And so you know that 2 minutes is not forever. So there's that message of impermanence, which in this instance is probably a welcome one, right? And so knowing that there is an end to this warrior two practice may give you permission to experience the potential discomfort of muscle fatigue or potential curiosity about, well, how does my body react to holding a posture for 2 minutes? It gives you the time and space and the boundaries of something known, like an endpoint, to potentially walk toward the unknown of sensation with a little bit more sense of groundedness. Right? We all walk toward the unknown frequently. And it is a skill to understand how to walk toward the unknown and maintain a sense of self and groundedness. And it's really not that easy. And so we practice. That's what yoga is all about. We have a mat, we have a practice. We try to take teachings from the practice into everyday life so that we can act more in line with our particular values and integrities. All right, as you inhale, straighten the front leg, turn the toes to be parallel with your back foot, and fold in between the legs, wide straddle forward bend. Right, as you inhale, walk your hands around to the front of your mat, low lunge. Exhale, step your back foot forward to meet your front foot. And then this time, come down into a little squat. Make sure your feet are together this time. So we're coming toward a narrow version of malasana. The feet are together. The knees will separate so that your torso can start to fold forward in between the thighs, almost like an upright child's pose, if you will. And then the head bows forward a little bit. Now, if you do have blocks, you can always sit on the blocks behind you, right? Sit with the blocks behind you, behind your feet, hips on the blocks themselves, and then you can fold forward. On an inhale, lift your gaze. Exhale, come to a seated position. So carefully lower yourself all the way down, either onto the mat or onto your blanket, and come into Baddha Konasana. So soles of the feet together, knees spreading wide. And first, see if you can pull your feet as close to your pelvis as possible so that the knees are very deeply folded. And think about rotating your pelvis forward so that your pubic bone starts to reach towards the floor and your tailbone becomes a little bit less weight bearing. And as you do that, can you also feel the energy of your knees reaching right and left in opposition to one another rather than down to the floor? Then, if it feels nice to bend forward, feel free to do so. See if you can do so by increasing the intention of the pelvis rolling forward over the thighs. On an exhale, make your way up to sit. Gather your knees together by using your hands to help close the legs. Slide the feet forward, and then come to set up for Shavasana. So you'll lie flat on your back. If you know that you like some support underneath your knees, feel free to grab a blanket or a couch cushion or a bolster, pillows. A rolled up jacket can be really helpful. Right, for this practice of Shavasana, if you are able to lie without support underneath your legs, do so. Have the legs a couple feet apart from each other. Have the arms maybe a foot away from the torso with the palms facing up towards the ceiling. Ensure that you are warm enough. So if that means that you need to go grab a blanket to cover or put some socks on, do so. Let the eyes either close or widen the gaze again so that there isn't a pointed focus of the pupil. If you have glasses or a watch on or a tight hair tie that is impeding full relaxation of your nervous system, right? If it's distracting, please remove those objects. And then I will be with you for the full length of the Shavasana, which will be 10 minutes. And so as you rest, don't worry about a timer. We're going to lie here for the next 9 or 10 minutes, committing to a practice of stillness in a world that is constantly in motion, where stillness is an act almost of rebellion, where we take care of ourselves so that we can take care of others, where we let the body have a moment to integrate, to process everything that you just did. Slowly bring your attention back to your breath. Make some small movements with your fingers and your toes. And then gently roll over to one side, curling into yourself. Pause there for a few moments. And then using your hands pressing down into the floor, assist yourself up into a seated position. Sit with as much clarity as is possible. If you have something to sit up on top of, blanket, block, bolster, pillow, do so. Align your head over your pelvis so that the curves of your spine can be natural and as balanced as possible. Find a seat that you could consider sitting in for a long time, feeling stable but at ease, and at the same time ready for action but ready for receiving information. Bring the hands to prayer in front of your chest, Anjali Mudra. As you exhale, bow the face down towards the fingertips. Act of gratitude for taking time to practice. May all beings be free from suffering. Namaste.